You're listening to My Comic Life on the My Comic Life Podcast Network. Welcome back to My Comic Life, folks. That's right, My Comic Life, your one-stop podcast for all things geek, nerd, movies, TV, comic books, video games, pop culture. If you're into that, stop. You have found the podcast for you. I am Sam, and joining me each week in the My Comic Life studio, folks, I just found out he gave the Silver Surfer his first surfing lesson ever, teaching the man to ride the cosmic waves and looking stylish while doing it. Alex, say hello to the folks out there.
Yeah, you guys out there might know him as the Silver Surfer, but back in the day we used to call him Norin Rad, or Norin Radical is what we used to call him. We used to hit those bitchin' waves out there, bro. But get on our level here at My Comic Life, and we may introduce you to him sometime. But seriously, folks, we missed you very much. Had a little bit of a break, had a great week, and I honestly can't wait to discuss this current slate that we have for you guys today. So, Sam, can you please take us into it?
All right, on the Marvel side of things, this week, Marvel Entertainment released the first official trailer for Moon Knight. Moon Knight is an upcoming American television miniseries created by Jeremy Slater, who was the screenwriter of the 2015 Fantastic and Netflix's Umbrella Academy for the streaming service Disney Plus, and based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. It is intended to be the sixth television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, sharing continuity with the films from that franchise. Alex, are you familiar with any of Jeremy Slater's earlier works, and what do you think?
Okay, so I am familiar with the 2015 Fantastic Four. I believe this was one of the earliest kind of arguments that we had in the I want to say the first kind of rendition of our show together, where it was you, me, and Alan back in the day. We had a very long discussion about how Dr. Doom, and that Fantastic Four looked like a crash test dummy, and how the whole movie was just poor and just bad. It was, I don't know, there were a little slight things that were pretty cool about it. I thought the Thing, the way they made him, he was just kind of this massive rock monster. That was cool. And of course, anytime you have the Human Torch, that's a pretty awesome to watch on the big screen. But other than that, man, it was just horrible. But Umbrella Academy, I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with. I know a lot of people say that it is written very well, and it's a very kind of popular show on Netflix, but I am just unfamiliar with it. So I'm hoping that this particular work leans more towards the Umbrella Academy and kind of steers clear of the Fantastic Four kind of vibe. But what about you, Sam? Are you familiar with any of Jeremy Slater's earlier works?
Well, first of all, shout out to our friend Alan A.J. Johnson. Man, we miss you around here on the show,
Friend
man.
of the show.
Friend of the show. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Man, we did not agree on much. We did not agree on much in that first iteration of My Comic Life, man. There was a lot of serious and heated debates there. But yes, the one thing that united us, we all did not like Josh Trank's 2015 Fantastic Four. So yeah, I'm a little nervous, but I did watch the first season of Netflix's Umbrella Academy. And that was a really awesome, fun, compelling show with really great, well done characters, well written characters. So I would definitely say redemption arc there for Umbrella Academy. And if you can bring what you brought to Umbrella Academy to Moon Knight, then yes, I will be excited and thrilled, and can't wait to see what's going to happen. If you bring what you brought to the Fantastic Four in 2015, I'm going to need one of those air sick bags next to me. So fingers crossed. This is more in line with the Umbrella Academy and less with the 2015 Fantastic Four. The series stars Oscar Isaac, who's been in Doom, X-Men Apocalypse, and the Star Wars sequel. He stars as Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, and Moon Knight. The premise follows Mark Spector, a mercenary who suffers from dissociative identity disorder and who is drawn into a deadly mystery involving Egyptian gods with his multiple identities, and finds himself becoming a conduit for the Egyptian moon god Khonshu. Moon Knight also stars Ethan Hawke as Arthur Harrow, a cult leader who encourages Spectre to embrace his inner darkness. Hawke said his take on Harrow is inspired by cult leader David Koresh. Based on the subject matter in the trailer itself, this series seems to be taking an intense psychological angle. Do you appreciate something like that, Alex?
I do, mainly because Oscar Isaac is kind of one of the few people that I immediately think of that can pull something like that off. I can't wait to see the credits. I would love for it to be like Oscar Isaac as Mark Spector, with Oscar Isaac as Stephen Grant, and Oscar Isaac as Jake Lockley. Like, I would love to see that in the credits if we had all, if it was nothing but Oscar Isaac. But um, to be a little bit more serious here, yeah, I think you and I, when they did show the first look, the real kind of first teaser of this show, we talked about how it was going to involve a lot more kind of psychologically, you know, based stories, and we both agreed that something like that is kind of, it's fresh, it's new, it's different, it's a little bit more mature, and I think that it falls in line very well with the kind of audience that Moon Knight kind of like draws in. Even though I do see, based on what the costume design and everything looks like, I think that it could be a very popular show with kids as well as adults. So hopefully they can figure out how to properly kind of cater to both audiences. But Sam, do you like this? Do you like a more mature psychological angle, or do you think they should kind of stick with the status quo that's been working for them so far?
No, I think, previous shows like on Netflix, like Daredevil and The Punisher and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage has shown that you can take a mature level with these shows and still have it hit a mass audience. Now, I know it's going to be on Disney Plus and not on Hulu. I was kind of hoping this show would show up more on Hulu with kind of like a big TVMA logo slapped on it. But hey, who am I to tell Disney what to do with their awesome track record so far? Um, the immediate differences I can spot between the show and the comics, I was a little shocked. To me, you do hear Mark Spector mentioned in the trailer, but in all the comics that I read, and I can't say like I've delved a huge amount into Moon Knight. Like I've read about 12 to 20 issues of Moon Knight. Usually, Mark Spector is the dominant personality that always seems to pop up in the comic books first. And it seems that they are focusing on some of his other personalities. It'll be interesting to see, if they show that kind of like rich Bruce Wayne side of him. Because right now he looks very much like, a schizophrenic or, somebody. So, yes, definitely suffering and very well played by Oscar Isaac, but definitely suffering from a split personality disorder. It was also fantastic, yes, to see Ethan Hawke in this trailer. But Alex, let me ask you this question: do you worry that a talent like Ethan Hawke can be wasted in sort of like a one-shot antagonist like Arthur Harrow? Because I mean, Marvel's got a history of doing this.
I do know that Marvel has kind of a bad habit of bringing in these amazing actors to portray these amazing kind of villains that they've had in their throughout their history in the comics, and they end up just kind of being defeated at the end of the movie, and they move on, and that's that. I feel like Ethan Hawke. Once I saw that he was on board, I was kind of like, that kind of really perked up my interest, because I didn't think that somebody like Ethan Hawke would, not to kind of like belittle anything one way or another. And of course, it's his life; he can do what he wants. But it seems like the kind of superhero stuff would be beneath somebody like Ethan Hawke's kind of acting talent. But I mean, in this day and age, these stories are getting so good that they kind of draw these people in. But what about you, Sam? Do you worry that Ethan Hawke's talent could possibly be kind of wasted on this one shot character?
Yeah, I'm hoping somehow that maybe he just kind of like winds up in prison, kind of like they've done with Vincent D'Onofrio's, Kingpin. Like, lock him up, but don't kill him. Because, man, yes, Marvel has spoiled so many like just great villains by just killing them off. I'm hoping maybe in a post snap world some of these guys got brought back, but I mean like stuff like Andy Serkis playing Ulysses Claw. I mean like he was fantastic both in the Black Panther and in Avengers Age of Ultron, and like we only got to see just a blip of him, and then boom, he gets killed. And man, that was so disappointing. Kurt Russell as Ego, the Living Planet, just I always love Kurt Russell. I need more Kurt Russell in my life. So anytime that you shortchange me on Kurt Russell, of course I'm gonna be, upset. Hela in Thor Ragnarok, man, again, just a phenomenal villain. Once again, I feel we're just getting shortchanged there. And Michael B. Jordan from the Black Panther, again, man, just fantastic villains, rich villains, amazing villains, and yeah, like you kill them off all way too quickly. Um, I definitely think, like I'm hoping, somebody with Ethan Hawke's acting talent, that they'll just lock him away in prison and bring him back for possibly later shows. But hey, I just answered sort of a question there. Alex, who do you think like got wasted as like a Marvel villain? Like which actor do you wish that they had, kind of kept around or hadn't killed off, or actors, if you will?
I think, and the answer is, I mean, the obvious answer is Ultron, just because of he's kind of always a thorn in the Avengers side. He shows up all the time. He's never truly dead because he always thinks about putting a backup somewhere. So Ultron's the easy answer for me. But I will say that I believe in the grand list of all these Avengers villains, that the only two that you see that do not actually die on screen, I believe, is Ultron and Hela. And I think everybody else gets either shot or stabbed or blown apart or something along those lines. So, well, now you listed a lot of really, really good names there, Sam. Was there one person in particular that you felt was extremely wasted? Like if you had to pick just one person to bring back
Oh
to an
man,
Avenger
just
movie.
one. You know it's going to be a tie now between uh, Michael B. Jordan for sure, or Hella. Just I loved both of them. They were fantastic villains. Yeah, loved them. Felt like yeah, they both got wasted. And I know we're not 100% sure Hela's dead, but I mean, spoiler alert here for Thor Ragnarok if you haven't seen it. I mean, she's on Asgard when it gets blown up and like Ragnarok comes, So I'm pretty sure she's gone. And oh my gosh, Michael B. Jordan's just famous line from Black Panther: just throw my body in the ocean." Ugh, God. I mean, fantastic to the end in his
Yeah,
role. He
he
was
really did
awesome.
an amazing job in that movie.
So is it strictly Ultron for you, or is there anybody else that
Yeah,
you're?
I gotta go Ultron, man. He's kind of. I appreciated James Spader's rendition of it. His voice was just perfect for the cold and calculating robot.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and like when he accidentally like ripped off somebody's body part, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." Yeah, here,
Yeah,
take it back. His kind of like way of like learning of like learning about his strength and his abilities and pushing things too far. Yeah, that was funny to watch for sure. But yeah, like I said, I'm hoping they'll just imprison Ethan Hawke, and that will kind of become sort of like the Marvel standard. Like lock him up somewhere to be used possibly in like a later project there. Uh, Now, the roughly 2 minute trailer is full of jump cuts and scant details, but still does a great job of pulling the viewer in. In fact, the Moon Knight trailer drew 75 million views in its first 24 hours, beating the viewership numbers of Loki, WandaVision. Wow, you really still going with the WandaVision there, Alex.
uh,
WandaVision and Hawkeye. Yeah, what did you think of the trailer, Alex?
I I liked it. It was I didn't it didn't tell say or it didn't reveal too much. It didn't spoil anything. You just kind of get these very brief looks at the Egyptian moon god Khonshu, and you actually only get kind of like a half a second look at the actual costume. Um, But the one thing that kind of got on my nerve, I don't know where he gets this British accent from, but man, it's just really it's really mild mannered and it gets on my nerves and it just kind of grinds my gears for some reason, Sam. But what about you? What did you think of the trailer?
I got to admit, the first time I watched it, I was just kind of sat there and I was like, huh. I was like, okay. Like, like that's not how I would have done a take on Moon Knight, but like I was still really excited for it. And then like I watched it right before the show began, of course, for show prep. And I got to admit, second time around, I had like a whole new, fresh perspective on it, and I got kind of goosebumps and excited and started fanboying out more. But I really thought it was gonna kind of like open more in like the Egyptian desert, with like a very wounded and beat up like Oscar Isaac, like crawling toward a statue of Khonshu, uh, you know, just kind of like bleary eyed, and begging for help, and like Khonshu
Yeah,
saves him.
that's one of those things like that I felt like it was so different from the actual comic because in the comics he's beaten and he's left for dead. He's
Yeah,
brought to Khonshu, asks for vengeance. Khonshu allows him to use his power, and then Mark Spector creates these other identities in order to help kind of facilitate his crime fighting antics. He plays the role of the millionaire in order to get in with that millionaire social circle so that he can find these kind of insider crime things. He plays the role of the cabbie so that way he can find these kind of low level criminals and stuff like that. Like and then as a result of these identities that he created, he starts to suffer from his dissociative identity disorder. But I was kind of hoping that they were going to do something like that with the show, but it doesn't really look like that's the case. I don't know if you kind of get that same vibe, Sam.
oh no, 100%. I mean, I'm on the same page with you there. In fact, you took the words right out of our mouth. My mouth, sorry, not our mouth. Wow. Just saying, like we definitely had a Charles Xavier, Eric Lyncher moment. Like shared mind meld moment there. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. Like I wanted to see more Mark Spector, and then see like these personalities come out of like Mark Spector, and maybe even Conchu kind of you know driving Oscar Isaac a little bit mad and causing like his psyche to splinter a little bit. But like we said, this is just a 2 minute trailer full of jump cuts. So I mean, like a later trailer or a second trailer could possibly show more of the Mark Spector mercenary side. We know we're going to see it at some point because he does get a phone call in the trailer from a woman going, "Mark, you're alive! Oh, thank God!" So I mean, yeah, but like
Oh,
you definitely,
100%. I know that they did filming mainly I want to say in Budapest and but they did spend some time in Jordan and I'm hoping that's where they filmed a lot of the temple and the desert the scenarios that we're talking about.
now, at the end of this trailer, we do get a costume reveal. I mean, Moon Knight's kind of a hard costume to translate to screen because usually, like, his face is always hidden in shadow with just two glowing eyes kind of peeking out from a hood. But rarely, like, do you see like his mask and face in full light. Uh, so I was curious as to how they were going to do that. What did you think of the costume, Alex?
I uh, I I dug the costume. I felt like uh, it was pretty faithful to the original design, although it was a lot, like you said, a lot more texture. There's a lot more detail to the costume, and I do like that it was kind of they had the Egyptian style wrappings and everything on there to kind of keep it um, tied in with the Egyptian theme. But like you said, I don't know how they would have been able to kind of make a more faithful costume where it's just like smooth and it ends up kind of looking almost like the Shazam costume that they
Yeah.
made on the DC side, where it's just like smooth muscles and it's kind of uh, I think for the mature theme that they're going for, they needed a costume that kind of looked a little bit more badass, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I think they did a good job nailing it. I know Megan Kasperlik, she's the costume designer for this show, and I think she's done a few other properties as well when it comes to superheroes. But I'm not sure. Sam, what did you think of the costume?
I always kind of thought he had it put on his costume, kind of like Batman did. So I was kind of surprised at how like they revealed it like almost kind of like a Venom symbiote inside of him, just like popping out and wrapping around him. But that being said, uh, a thing I hadn't really noticed or given much thought to was, yeah, it looks like Egyptian wrappings coming out around him. You illustrated that point beautifully there, Alex. Yeah, it looks like Egyptian, cloth wrappings are coming out and like enveloping his body. I think it looks good. I liked the glowing, kind of whitish, bluish eyes. I'm glad that they stuck with that, because I think if you had just gone with eye slits, it would have looked ridiculous. I think that does kind of give him, sort of like an otherworldly, kind of ghostly vibe, which I like. So, no, I think the costume was done well. In fact, yeah, I think we can agree that one of the coolest parts about this show is the aesthetic and costume design. And a part of that does come from production designer Stefana Sella, who has been tapped for Morbius and the upcoming Blade production. Now, bearing that in mind, do you think that the use of the same production designer means that we will be getting sort of like a mini shared universe between these characters? Alex, would you want to see Morbius, Moon Knight, and Blade all together on the same screen?
Yeah, I think that kind of that it can definitely work, and I think it has worked in the comics before. I'm not positive if all three of them have been on the same team, but I'm it definitely can work. But I kind of feel like you, where it's something that is a show that I would like to see on a Hulu or something like that, because I don't think they're gonna be able to make it mature enough on the Disney Plus side. That's definitely gonna have to be not necessarily like banished, but kind of just moved over to a more serious subscription service. For that's how I feel. But what about you, Sam? Would you like to see these guys team up with possibly even some others from the past or in the future?
Oh yeah, I would love to see Moon Knight, Morbius, and Blade all on the same screen, because that would start hinting towards, and I've mentioned it before in previous podcasts, the Marvel Knights. I think an unsung group of awesome superheroes there. But like you, I agree. Like, I would want them all to appear on like the Blade TV series on Hulu with, like I said, that TVMA rating there, because yeah, I don't think them appearing in the kind of very strong looking PG-13 Moon Knight series they could all be done justice there. But yeah, no, I'm like I said, I'm digging the costume, I'm digging the production design on this show, and so yeah, no, I mean, keep carrying that over to other productions. I think it's going to play out very well.
I
Alex,
think it'd be
before
really cool to see because Marvel Studio President Kevin Feige, he stated that after introducing Moon Knight in the series, the character will cross over into the MCU films, and I would love to see him team up. Like I said, um, with Morbius, if that ever comes out. I know that's been pushed back like 37 times. With Blade, um, and even you could even put in the Black Knight, and hopefully if they ever decide to bring in Ghost Rider, something like that, like a big team up like that of some of the kind of more serious characters would definitely that could definitely work 100% in my mind.
Oh, don't start getting my hopes up for like the Marvel Knights or the Midnight Suns, as
Oh
they
yeah.
call themselves sometimes. Ah, man, I would love to see that collaboration of Strange and Ghost Rider and Blade and Morbius, and heck yeah, bring in Moon Knight too. Bring in Moon Knight into the group. That would be a fantastic team up there. Yeah, I was just to say, before we wrap up this segment, Alex, any final thoughts or words about Moon Knight?
Yes, Disney Plus or Marvel or whoever, I know you're listening to the show. I need you to move that release date up to March 18th, because that will be the full moon. And right now you're just trying to release it on a waning crescent, and I don't like that. I don't like waning crescent moons. I like full moons for my Moon Knight viewing. Thank you.
All right, folks. Moon Knight is scheduled for release on March 30th, 2022, and will consist of a 6 episode first season. And any new breaking Moon Knight news, any new Moon Knight trailers, we will have it for you right here on My Comic Life. So stay tuned to our podcast and our Facebook page. All right, though, leaving Marvel behind and strolling down the street, we come to Comics Corner. That's right. Peacemaker disturbing the peace #1. Yeah, delving right into the DC side of things here. A one shot from DC's Black Label. Long before joining the Suicide Squad, Christopher Smith, codenamed Peacemaker, meets with a psychiatrist, a woman dangerously obsessed with his bizarre and violent past. From his tragic childhood to his military service overseas to his multiple missions with special forces, Smith has had more than his share of skeletons in his closet. But who is actually analyzing whom? And will this trip down memory lane result in yet more fatalities? Garth Ennis and Gary Brown delve deep into Christopher Smith's history of violence and reveal what might bring peace or not to the Peacemaker. The involvement of writer Garth Ennis is enough to let us know that the primary color for this series should be red. Alex, are you a Garth Ennis fan?
I am a fan of some of his works, not a lot of them. He's kind of like he bounces back and forth from being extremely brilliant to being extremely childish, and I think that if he has a solid editor, somebody that can really kind of rein him in, like when he does like Punisher Max and on some of his better stories behind Preacher, then he's a phenomenal writer. But when he is kind of just given free reign and he just gets super edgy, like with the boys or with some of his other kind of really juvenile type of stories and stuff like that, he can kind of get into just more of the like shocking for shocking sake kind of storytelling, and I don't really appreciate that. That's not really something that I read comics for. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's my take on Garth Ennis, whatever. But what about you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm a Garth Ennis fan like you. Really liked his run on Preacher and The Boys. He's done some Hellblazer. But like you, yes, I've seen Garth Ennis unleashed. Like I read a series called Crossed. That is a major NSFW series. Read at your own risk, dealing with
Mm-hmm.
sodomizing rage zombies. And I kid you not on that one. That was a interesting page to turn to. And yeah, that's Garth Ennis kind of off leash there without anybody reining him in. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't always make for the best work. But yeah, like when he's really honed in, like we said, doing stuff like The Boys and Preacher and some of his work with Hellblazer, yes, definitely a big fan of his work then. And if you can bring that kind of same work ethic and aesthetic here to the Peacemaker, I think you're going to have a very interesting one shot there. Let me ask you a follow up question here, though. Do you worry that this series could be attempting to milk the character after the release of his solo series on HBO Max?
Normally, I would say no, but I kind of fell into that trap with the release of the Eternals comic book alongside the Eternals movie because I mean, it's not great, and I did feel like they were kind of just trying to milk the characters. So I hope not. I believe this is just a one shot, but I mean, depending on its popularity, it probably could or easily move into a series, but. We'll see. I haven't really been able to catch the TV show. Have you, Sam? I know you were recommending it to me, but what would you have to say uh, about kind of tying in these comic books to that show?
Like if you're gonna do a one shot for that, like you should like clearly have it be like, hey, this is a one shot, kind of like a prequel for the show. Beyond that, no, I think this one shot should exist on its own. I'm fine with the popularity of Peacemaker. Getting more Peacemaker like stories out there. I'm always rooting for the lesser known comic book characters at least getting a shot in the spotlight. So if the Peacemaker TV series is what propelled this one shot to be written, I'm totally fine with that. But once again, no. I think you should write a separate tie-in, like a separate one-shot tie-in comic for like the Peacemaker TV series, and like this one shot should stand on its own. And if it sells well enough and you want to do more, by all means go for it. Like I said, I'm always pulling for those underdog comic book characters. You asked if I had seen the Peacemaker TV series. I'm about 2 episodes in. It's dark. It's hilarious. Again, not safe for work material at all. But James Gunn and John Cena, I mean, just they're tearing it up on the screen. They're having a blast. I've really enjoyed almost every minute of that show. It's really hard to find like a low moment in that show, and I think that's something we'll get around to reviewing a little later here. But yeah, no, definitely recommend checking out Peacemaker if you are a fan of James Gunn's Suicide Squad, or if you're a fan of John Cena, or both. Like I said, definitely worth checking out. Peacemaker Disturbing the Peace releases January 25th, 2022. And as always, we here at My Comic Life encourage you to visit and support your local comic book shop. And hey there, talk to the man behind the counter. Comic book store owners are awesome people.
Absolutely.
Alex, any final thoughts here on the Peacemaker comic book?
No, I'm probably going to pick this up because it's a one shot. And when I head to the, and it does have a lot of, if you do some research on it, it does have a lot of really cool little variant covers and stuff like that that I also might pick up. So this one's definitely on my radar.
Awesome. All right, moving from Comics Corner, we're jumping into Hawkeye. That's right, folks. We're about to break down the 5th episode of Hawkeye. So, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the 5th episode of Hawkeye, pause the podcast here, use your own Disney Plus log on, watch the episode, and then come back and pick the podcast up right here. I'm going to give you that famous 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown, and then we are going. So 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, folks, you are spoiled. The 5th episode of Hawkeye is titled Ronin and premiered December 15th, 2021. In 2018, Belova and fellow Black Widow Sonya have been helping deprogramming Black Widows and reuniting them with other widows. Another former widow, Anya, and Belova become a victim of the blip. In the present, Bishop returns to Eleanor's house and tells her about Duquesne Shell Corporation, leading Eleanor to call the NYPD and have him arrested. Bishop returns to her apartment where she finds Belova waiting for her before the latter reveals her past and mission to kill Barton. Meanwhile, after recovering at Grill's apartment, Barton dons the Ronin suit and confronts Lopez at the auto shop where he killed her father. During the fight, he unmasks himself and attempts to convince her to let go of her vendetta and leave his family alone. He reveals that an informant working for Lopez's boss wanted her father dead, but Lopez initially disbelieves him. Bishop arrives to help Barton escape while Lopez becomes suspicious of Kazi, who was absent on the night of her father's death. The next day, Belova texts Bishop, revealing that she was hired by her mother Eleanor to kill Barton and that Eleanor is working with Lopez's uncle, whom Barton identifies as Kingpin. Wow. All right, Kingpin revealed as the big bad. Chances of Daredevil's appearance in the MCU, Alex?
That after they brought back Vincent D'Onofrio, I definitely feel like we can get a Daredevil to reappear somewhere in the MCU. I'm talking Daredevil proper, like costume and everything. So, maybe in that Midnight Suns or that you were talking about earlier, throw him in there with Blade, Morbius, and definitely with Moon Knight, and you have yourself a hell of a show there. So I think the chances of Daredevil appearing, I would give it probably like a 70% chance that we're going to see Daredevil sometime in the future in the MCU. What about you, Sam?
I mean, he's already made an appearance, spoiler again, in Spider-Man No Way Home, a very brief one. There's been confirmation that there are other Daredevil projects in the works. Oh, this gets me so happy, so excited. So yes, I think there is a chance he either could appear in Hawkeye or at least There could be a hint of him in Hawkeye. Now, this was a really unique thing here in this show. It showed sort of like an instant blip. Like I said, in the beginning, this show kicks off in 2018, and Belova and fellow Black Widow Sonya have been helping deprogram Black Widows all over the world, and they find a widow named Anya, and Belova they find a former widow Anya, and as they're kind of deprogramming her and helping her out, the blip happens, and Belova becomes a victim of the blip. Like she's staring at herself in a bathroom mirror, and she gets blipped away, and then you see the bathroom change from like white walls to green walls, and Belova gets blipped back in, like, but it's like an instantaneous change almost. What did you think of this interpretation of the blip, Alex?
I thought it was pretty awesome, actually, to tell you the truth. Like I never thought about what it would be like for somebody. It was awesome just to see it from the point of view of somebody who was actually like blipped. I think they did the same thing in WandaVision, correct? Like the what's her name? Monica Rambeau. She got blipped too, I believe,
Yes.
and or was it her mom that got blipped? I don't know. I believe it was Monica Rambeau that got blipped, but it wasn't in the same vein that it happened to Yelena. And I just really liked that they changed the paint and the decor of the room she was in an instant, and it was kind of like it 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 kind of gave reason or gave cause as to why she felt so discombobulated and so confused coming out of that room. And um, I just thought it was a really neat little kind of one of those little, not necessarily Easter egg, but just the little details and stuff that make this show kind of really special to me. But what about you, Sam? Did you like to see this interpretation of the blip?
Yeah, sort of the insta blip. It was really great. They did a great job showing that passage of time, and then her coming back out and just being totally shocked that Anna had like kids and was married, and they just did a great job of illustrating that. Like, hey, look, time has passed here. Um, I really did. Yeah, yeah. I loved the insta blip. I loved just seeing like the subtle changes to the house. Like I said, they repainted the bathroom in 5 years. Who hasn't done that before? You know, it's just those little details that really just kind of made that more fascinating. And then, like I said, just Belova's reaction of her thinking that it was instantaneous, and then coming out and seeing that the 5 years had passed. Yeah, just great and wonderfully well acted there by Florence Pugh. Um, Got to ask you, what was your favorite part of this episode, and what would you rate it, Alex?
This episode was a little bit uh, less on the action. I think we're gearing up to have kind of a really action-packed sixth episode, and this is kind of the calm before the storm. So I will give it that. I will go into this my rating of this week's episode and keep that in mind. Um, my favorite part, I want to say it was the conversation between I believe it was Bishop and Yelena in her was it her in her apartment.
Yeah, yeah. She went.
And
She went back to her burned out apartment to collect a few things, and Belova was there waiting for her.
that's right. And just their conversation and their back and forth was really funny. The way that when Bishop is like, "You could have killed me right when I walked in," or you could have killed me if you really wanted to, and Yelena just being like, "Oh yeah, right when you walked through the door." That was it was a really funny flex, and I really like the character. Florence Pugh is doing an amazing job, and so the rating that I'm going to give this one, knowing that this is kind of just a setup episode, it's still gonna I'm gonna go with a 7, just a 7 for me, because not a whole lot of action going on with this one. Although there was some really big kind of developments that happened, it was just not enough people got punched in the face, man. That's kind of my metric right there, dude. But what about you, Sam? What was your favorite part of this episode? And if you had to give this one a rating, what would you rate it?
Favorite part of this episode, yeah, kind of like you was Kate and Belova talking in her apartment and sharing some macaroni. That was kind of funny and fun to see, and they had a really great chemistry on screen, and they sold that scene very well. Also, love seeing the Ronin back in action. You know, kind of like Clint having to tap back into that darker side. And man, you know, seeing some of that what I'm going to call ruthless aggression as he took out the tracksuit mafia with ease in that car lot. That was just kind of it was kind of scary and yet kind of fun to see um, there. So yeah, definitely my two favorite things or my two favorite parts of this episode. This gets kind of a flat 8 for me. Pardon me there. It gets a flat 8 for me because it kind of falls back on a tired TV trope that I've just seen done too many times. Like Belova, yes, is hired to kill Clint Barton, but she shows up under the falsehood that Clint killed her sister. And when she confronts Clint, she doesn't give him any time to explain himself. You know, she's just there and she thinks she knows everything. And so she's just going to kill him just based on what she thinks she knows without giving Clint a time, you know, any time to explain his side of things. And like I said, I've seen just this story trope done dozens of times in both superhero and sci-fi shows, and in you know your regular dramas. It's nice when they flip this trope on its head, and like the two people like meet on the roof, or like meet in the alley, or like meet in the restaurant, and they sit down and they actually like fully explain like their side of the story, and the other person explains their side of the story instead of somebody just kind of blindly running in and be like, I'm gonna kill you because I think I know what I know, you know. um no, in fact, I started like cringing on the inside because I'm like, really, you're just gonna do this tired TV trope again? I'm like, come on, just have all parties involved sit down and talk for 1 minute. But yeah, so that's why this kind of gets a flat 8 for me, but still a good
Wow.
solid episode. All right,
Yeah, that's you get yeah very high marks from Sam.
all right, Alex. One episode left. Any hot takes? Any possible tinfoil hat spoilers you think is going to happen here?
I think it's all kind of just kind of laid out there right now. You see, you know, Yelena kind of turning. So I think all three of them will probably show up and team up to take down the Kingpin. So that it's not necessarily a hot take, but it's just kind of the way that things are the puzzle pieces are being put right now. So what about you, Sam? Do you have any hot takes?
Like you, they've spent all this time kind of being like, don't wake up the big bad, like don't get the big bad involved, don't get him involved, and like they didn't name him forever. So yeah, I think with the Kingpin finally being revealed, yeah, you're possibly going to see Kate and Clint in their new costumes. By the way, that was another fun part, is that the LARPers in New York made Kate and Clint new costumes. We haven't seen them yet, but I'm hoping yes, that we get sort of a final confrontation with Kingpin uh, in in their new costumes. I would like to see what their new costumes are. I think it's probably going to be the kind of you know comic accurate black and purple costume. But like I said, I'm excited to see what those costumes look like. And yes, I want to hear some mention of Daredevil, like either have Murdoch show up or like hear you know, like Kingpin be like, "Oh man, Daredevil didn't, you know, doesn't even hit that hard." You know, something. Give me some nod to the Daredevil there. But yeah, I my hot take is that it's going to come down to like a fight between uh, Kingpin, um, Lopez, and then yeah, Kate and Clint. Yeah, fighting each other with Yelena possibly showing up and picking a side. Um, but yeah, that wraps up my thoughts. Any just final words on this, Alex, before we wrap this up here?
No, I really enjoy the show. I love watching it, and I hope, even though I don't know if they've signed on for any kind of season two or anything like that, but I do hope that there will be a season two in some capacity, even if Clint has to kind of fade into the background and it's just Kate. I do hope that we get some a Hawkeye in the future.
Same here, 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, I always loved Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, but if he wants to turn the bow over to Kate and let her, kind of take the reins on this one and him pop up occasionally in like mentor roles, I definitely think Haley Steinfeld is strong enough to carry this series going forward on her own. All right, folks, this wraps up another great episode of My Comic Life. If you want us to talk more about video games and less about comics, or hear us like review movies more, email us at realmycomiclife@gmail.com. Again, that is all one word, realmycomiclife@gmail.com. Also, continue to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Alex, we're up to 22 subscribers on our YouTube channel. It is steadily growing. But please, yes, continue to spread the word about the show. Like I said, a like on our Facebook page and definitely a subscribe on our YouTube channel really means a lot to us, and it really helps grow the show. And speaking of our My Comic Life community, it's time to shout out our My Comic Life Fan of the Week. Our My Comic Life Fan of the Week is John Baker from Telluride, Colorado. John Baker, thank you so much for liking our Facebook page and emailing us saying, hey, I want to be your My Comic Life Fan of the Week. John Baker, you are our My Comic Life Fan of the Week. Salute to you, sir. Salute to you, John.
John Baker, man, very, very, very much thank you. Salute to you, sir. And please DM us your address. We'll send you those coupons for those free surfing lessons.
Oh, man. As always, apologies to Kevin Smith. So sorry, man. We just couldn't get you on this week. We'll try next week to squeeze you in here, buddy. We are going to get you on My Comic Life. We know you're a big fan of the show. I'm sorry. We ran out of time this week. What can I say there, All right, folks, this wraps up another great episode of My Comic Life. As always, thank you for listening, and ditch the herd. Be a nerd. Stay strong out there, my friends.